Hello guys. Today we're going to talk about multiplying polynomials together. This should pretty much be a review from you for Algebra 1, but just to refresh because I know we had some trouble with that in the last unit. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is multiplying a monomial by a polynomial. So right here, 5x, that's my monomial because there's a one term. This that we're multiplying by is a binomial because there are two terms. So in order to actually simplify this, we're going to go ahead and use what you've always done and just distribute. So 5x times 4x squared, that's what we're doing first, and I'm going to write that out just so we can see. And then the second part will be 5x times negative 3y. So let's look at what happens here. Remember, when there's just an x, there's an imaginary power of 1. So when we have 5x times 4x squared, 5 times 4 gives us 20. X to the first times x squared would just be x to the third. Now on the right-hand side, we have 5x times negative 3y. Well, 5 and negative 3 multiplied is negative 15. But then x times y, well, they both have a power of 1. However, since they're not the same base, they're different bases, you can't actually add your exponents. So you would just have 15xy. So next we're going to look at multiplying a binomial times a binomial. And we've created a shortcut to do that, and it's called FOIL. So if we remember what FOIL stands for, it's first, outside, inside, and last. Alright, so what that tells us to do when we see the first, it essentially FOIL just helps you to remember to multiply everything by everything. Well, first means take your first two terms, so 4n and 2n, and multiply them together. Well, that would give me 8, and then n times n, since they both have a power of 1, is n squared. Outside is the two terms on the outside of both of your binomials. So 4n times 6, which would just be 24n. Inside is the two terms on the inside of your two binomials, and that's 1 times 2n, so plus 2n. And then last is the 1, so the last term in the first binomial and the last term in the second binomial, 1 times 6, which is plus 6. So once you've distributed or FOILed, then you just have to combine like terms, which would be the 24 and the 2n. So we end up with 8n squared plus 26n plus 6. And lastly, what if we have something that's a little bit bigger? So here we have a trinomial times a binomial. And so the key to doing this is that you're distributing just like you are with the others, but you want to make sure that each component of your trinomial gets multiplied by everything in the binomial. And I just use my distributing and keep track of everything that I've done. So if you have something that's a trinomial with 3 terms times a binomial with 2 terms, you should end up with 3 times 2 or 6 terms when you're done. So let's go ahead and do that. So the first, we'd take the n squared times the 2n, and that's going to give me 2n cubed. N squared times n is n cubed. Then I'm going to have n squared times negative 4, or negative 4n squared. Next, we're going to take that middle term, 6n, and multiply it by 2n. So that gives me 12n squared. Since that's a positive 12, I'm going to put a plus in between. Then we take 6n and multiply it by the negative 4. Just make sure everything gets multiplied by everything. And we get a negative 24n. And then lastly, take the negative 4 and multiply it by 2n. And so we get negative 8n. And then a negative 4 times a negative 4 becomes a plus 16. So we've ended up with our 6 terms, and now we have to combine anything that is like. So starting with the highest exponent, 2n cubed, there's no other n cubes, so I'm just going to bring that down. Then you have negative 4n squared and 12n squared. Negative 4 plus 12 would give me positive 8. And then remember, your variables don't change, your power don't change when you're adding. Then I have negative 24n and negative 8n, which combine to give me negative, and 24 and 8 would be 32n. And then lastly, we have a plus 16, which has no like terms, so we're just bringing it down. And there's your answer. So go ahead and try assignment 4 and check your answers when you're done, and then correct any that you got wrong and submit those corrections as well. Good luck.